Where are you from originally?
Well, originally I'm from my mom, but, um,
I think that's
but
Shakespeare.
man, he was a funny guy. He stole my joke. Now I'm from the Bay Area, California, Northern California, Berkeley, Oakland, East Bay, and yeah, and I've bounced around a lot of my life, but that's where home base and where the origin is from.
Parents, visual artists, grandparents, musicians, right?
Yeah, ish. Parents, visual artists for sure. Um, Grandparents did a lot of things.
Was musician in there?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, yeah, for sure. Playing music. Grew up around a lot of music, grew up around art, grew up around activism, grew up around rock and roll, grew up around um yeah. I mean the Bay Area is a hell of a place. It's a kaleidoscope of culture. It's a whole lot of diversity.
When you say like I grew up around a lot of music, I grew up around a lot of activism, I grew up a lot around art. I'd love to hear more about that because I'm always what I'm interested in is
Mhm.
like how that shapes somebody.
I think as a kid, you have this natural urge to want to fit in. You want to just, blend in. And, every time my parents would split or I'd move schools or, you know, that kind of like new kid, like fear, you know, wanting to just hide and blend in, natural urge, I think is a normal thing to feel. But learning to, as I grew up and grew older, embrace all these unique experiences I was exposed to, all these things I was around. My mom taught printmaking and photography at San Francisco Art Institute. My dad was a sculpture professor at Fresno State. Um, my grandma, um, my grandma was in a whole lot of activism and social work, and my grandpa was a map maker and a writer,
Um, what
uh,
kind of maps?
hiking maps.
Cool.
Yeah. But yeah, and then my aunt and uncle who lived in the house that I grew up in as well. It was a big family home that we were all packed into. Were rock and rollers. And I was, they were my idols, my first idols as, a little 5-year-old boy watching, you know, my cool aunt and uncle, play in this rock band and rehearse in the basement and make music and, have their own CDs and posters of shows they played. And I was like, wow, music is, sounds like the coolest thing in the world.
Local rock band or
Yeah, yeah.
so local shows. Bar, wow, that's something else to grow up with. So hold on. So when you get into hip hop, is that very rebellious of you?
Well, I mean, it was the culture that, so here I am in this home, in this family, in this lineage of, but then outside of the house and the culture that I'm, submerged in and surrounded by and, fallen in love with is, hip hop is, that's everything that's around me and I gravitated towards and fell in love with and, identified and connected with and got into rapping when I was around 13. I started making beats and, scribbling raps in my notebooks and learned how to like record quote unquote songs, and upload them to MySpace. And that idea that you could make music and put it out and this was possible was like changed my life forever.
Were there shows? I mean, were you in my mind in like the Johnny Cash movie version of your life? You're like sneaking into hip hop shows in San Francisco or in Oakland or
Yeah.
as a kid. Is that anything?
Yeah, 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 fairly true. Yeah, I mean, my first concert, my first real show that I got to go to, like with my friends, like I was like 13, 14, but it was Kanye. It was his first tour. And I
Wow.
remember, what he represented at that time, college dropout, he didn't sound like anybody, and I never felt like I looked or sounded or, felt like anybody. And all of a sudden you hear this voice on the radio that is so drastically, confidently, boldly different than anything else. He's rapping about being self-conscious and his accent's different, his tenor, his tone, his cadence, everything's different. And I remember going to that concert and he got his gold plaque for college dropout on stage. And it was at the Fillmore in San Francisco. And, that show just stuck with me because, he was this like bold, brave outcast in my mind, like who had the confidence of, you know, the world, but they didn't look or sound like anybody. And I think that just fundamental essence and idea really stuck with me. It's like embracing your individuality, being confident enough to stand out.
Yeah, I mean, when you feel like an outsider in even in a subculture or in a counterculture, to see someone who is also like you can just feel like, well, I'm alone.
Yeah.
There's no one. And when you see someone who is an outsider, especially someone who's like succeeding, you're
Yeah.
like you go like, oh, I don't even need to worry about this stuff. I don't even need to
Yeah.
worry about fitting in. You know?
Yeah. It's like it's possible.
Yeah. Wow.
And you need that little light of hope.
Yeah. So I mean, the story I hear of you is drive. Like drive, drive, drive. There's a story I heard about you when you were making the music video for Runaround Sue when you were in college. You were maxing out your credit cards. Like it was sort of
Yeah.
all or nothing. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And when we say maxing out a credit card, I think the limit was $1,500.
Right.
But
Right. 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 Right.
but
Right.
hey, I mean, here's the fundamental thing. Like, man, if you have $1,000 and you have to spend all thousand of it, to do something, it's essentially the same as if you have $100,000 and you got to spend it all to like put it all on the table on something. And at that time, that was everything. And me and my manager at the time, who I went to school with, and we built this all together. We both put our credit cards on the table, and we planned the whole video together. We got all the wardrobe from thrift shops, the props, everything, and I remember the morning after the video came out, I woke up like it was Christmas. I went to check YouTube and check the views, and it had like 13,000 views, and I was like, oh my gosh, what's happening? Like we're going viral, and it felt like finally we had like broken through a wall. But this is really actually, potentially possible, and we could actually do this and take it to the universe.
I mean, I want to stay on that for a second because I find that really interesting. And I'm not here to say that you didn't have a bunch of no's beforehand, and you didn't have a bunch of challenges beforehand, and you didn't have a bunch of stuff that didn't go right beforehand. But I just love this. I just something I love about the story about, hey, I'm going to give it my all, every bit of money I have, put every bit of time into it, and it kind of worked out.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, it's one of those stories that's like, I hope to inspire and to, you know, how many stories like this it took for me to believe that this was possible against all odds. I hope to offer that same kind of like hope and inspiration to others because it's like, look, the odds are very slim. Um, it's very hard to make it in music. You're better off just loving it and not, you know, placing everything on the need for it to, you know, like necessarily like work financially or like for it to because if you love something and it makes you happy, then you've already won, essentially.
Yeah, you're not wrong about that.
If
But
you get to do something, for the majority of your life that makes you happy and brings you joy, then you already won. But, you know, but it's also nice to get to do it for a living. Um,
what happens when it gets real though? Like when the song starts blowing up and you're an independent artist and you smash out your credit cards because the next thing in your bio is then he got signed. And you just kind of skip a lot to then he got signed. But like, I know enough people who've got signed. I know a lot. I know enough people who had the world of attention finally on them and the world of the music industry on them to know
mm,
that it's rarely they got signed and everything was okay. Like what was,
no.
and I'm not here to talk, we're not, I'm, going to go to the details of your label or anything, but like when it works out and all of a
Yeah.
sudden the eyes of the industry are on you, that got to be something. That got to be some pressure or something.
Oh man, that's where you find out what you're made of.
What do you mean?
No, I mean that's when the work starts, and that's when you really got to have grit and you got to have belief in yourself. You got to just like, all right, just buckle up and and go for this ride because that's when the pressure comes. It's like you can work you know countlessly for hours and hours and hours in the dark, in the kind of like comfort and not hiding, but like safety of isolation But then once the lights turn on and everybody's like expecting it, or all eyes are on you, and there's this, other factors that come into play, like, all right, you got paid in advance, now you got to deliver, or, we, you know, that's where pressure comes in, but that's where also like just, trusting your process and believing in yourself. And again, it just comes back to, if you're doing this because you love it, just keep having fun, let it be natural. And that's what happened. I took, like, when I finally got signed, it's like, okay, you guys have no idea what's to come, because now now I have the keys to the castle and I get to really play. Like, and
Oh wow.
yeah, and we
So
just
you were
like,
like, hey, I got money now. I got a budget. I got a
and
team behind me.
yeah,
Look what I can
and
do.
yeah, and to me, the first thing budget and money meant wasn't like a chain or a car or anything. I lived out of a suitcase for the first year I was signed. I was like, and it just meant now I can shoot the videos and bring these ideas to life that I've had in my head. I get to record and work with different producers, and I get to actually fulfill these ideas, because it costs money to create art.
Yeah.
Like, essentially, I mean, look, you want to paint, you got to go buy canvases, you got to go buy paint, you got to go buy brushes. Like, to make music, and put it out, you got to pay producers, you got to, have a mic, you have to pay an engineer, you have to, get it mixed, mastered, you got to have artwork, you got to go through these steps. Like, it takes money to make money. And for me, it was just like, now I have the resources to create.
This is the part of the interview. This is where I'm going to play Me, Myself, and I, but I want to give you the option of not playing it. Are you cool to hear it?
Uh, I mean, it would probably be the 8 millionth time I've heard it, but
Well, let's go 8,000,001 if you don't mind. If that's cool
okay,
with you.
don't
Okay, yeah,
mind.
let's take a listen.
I just need to be alone. I just need to be at home. Understand what I'm speaking on. If time is money, I need a loan. But regardless, I'll always keeping on. Fake friends, we don't take L's, we just make M's. While y'all follow, we just make trends. I'm right back to work when that break ends. Yeah.
It's just me, myself, and I.
That is G-Eazy and Bebe Rexha with Me, Myself, and I. G-Eazy is my guest. My name's Tom Power. You say you've heard that 8 billion times. Well, so has everybody else. The song has over 1 billion streams right now. It was your first top 10 single. Let me ask you this. When I have hey, you had your first like massive big hit conversation with people, it's almost always the same story. They either tell me one of two things. They either tell me like, it was the last song we did. We were on our way out of the studio and we were packing up and we went in and we
Yeah.
recorded it. Or they say, we had no idea. We had no idea that it was going to be hit. But I really love this, if this is true, that what I was reading about you was that you fully knew. You were like, yeah, this is it. This is going to work. This is the hit.
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
true?
Yeah, no, I mean, of course you never know. Like, something can sound like a hit, smell like a hit, look like a hit, might just not be a hit.
Yeah.
Like, no, we don't have the power that's greater than the magic of music. Like, to think that or that you are smarter than the magic of music, it's like, but so you have to stay in just like awe and, appreciative, kind of wonder state of like, I think it's amazing, but hell, what do I know? Um, but in the case of this one, man, I mean, Bebe Rexha, I can't thank enough. I think she's world class, a phenomenal, like, just like savant talent, and her sense of melody, her voice, her writing, her emotional feel, and authenticity. And she changed my life forever. And I'm forever deeply grateful and appreciative of, that afternoon that we had a session and she played me a couple demos and she played me a rough, like, take of, the sketch of Me, Myself, and I, what would become Me, Myself, and I. And like, I was just I was like that part, that, like, we're done here. We don't need to hear anything else. Let's build that is, oh my God. I felt it in my bones and my body. I was like, that is different. And I think, like, when it comes to pop music, popular music, is what it means. It's popular because it resonates with, a population of people. And to do that, I think you have to hit a fundamental, like, human feeling that so many people, like a large population, can all relate to. But you have to say it in this concise way. And that's what makes it, digestible and
Mm-hmm.
accessible and, palatable and what makes it pop, to
Mm-hmm.
play on pop radio, to fit something, a human emotion in 3 minutes and, have it be played a billion times. It's harder than it sounds to fit something so complex into this tiny package. But those who can do it, there's a real brilliance to it. And, she's one of those and finding ways to frame relatable human feelings, into a 3 minute song is a real magic.
I can very much hear your gratitude there. How does your life change when you get a song that big?
Oh man, I think I played it was somewhere between 275 and 300 shows that year
Wow.
out of 365 calendar days. It took me around the world. It was a blur, it was a blitz, I mean, one of the biggest blessings ever. I mean, it helped me buy a house, it helped me buy my mom a house. It changed my life forever. And that's how big one 3 minute recording can, you know, impact like the rest of everything. It can be a catalyst for, everything else to change.
You kind of stepped away from the spotlight for a while. Is that because everything got so big? Is that because you were touring 200 days a year? Is that because?
A part of my personality is learned how to be, like forward facing and, in the public eye and, you know, uh, you can't help but appreciate aspects of, like
Yeah,
attention or fame or whatever, you know what I mean? But
yeah,
also like deep down, like who I'd been my whole entire life was a bit of an outsider, was a bit of a loner, was a bit of
yeah,
a very private person. And I had to abandon all that, to adopt this personality of like, all right, like, and grow into this like, persona of like, all right, go be a star, go sell these records, go live on tour, and look, there's dimensions and layers of my personality and my self, but I think I neglected that and needed space. And then, the biggest part was losing my mom. And I was just like, you know, our industry is not set up to allow breaks, really,
yeah,
It's like if you step away, it's like a scary, like dangerous, they might forget about you. You know what I mean? And you're not allowed to do that, no matter. And I'd gone from record, go into promo, release the album, shoot the videos, and then tour it, and then go right back into record and repeat, rinse, wash, repeat. And it's not like you ever get a summer vacation really, or like a break. And
yeah.
I think I just been needing that more than I knew.
A couple of things come to mind there. One is that I don't know if you ever think about this, but like fame's kind of new. Like,
Mm.
I don't like if you really think about it, we didn't really have mass media. I mean, this is ironic for someone who hosts a show like this to
Yeah.
say, but like we didn't really have mass media, what, 200, 150, 200 years
Yeah,
ago.
yeah, yeah.
So like
Yeah.
if you were famous, you were kind of famous in your community,
Yeah.
like you were like a famous, like,
Popular.
yeah, you were popular or well loved or something like that.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
like the idea of like being photographed and people knowing anything about you and having to have like a public persona and all that stuff and just the perils of fame and being written about and touring and all this other stuff and just how it changes how you walk into a grocery store, how you walk into how you're in your backyard with your family even or something like that. I don't know. I don't know if we've done enough work. I feel like when you have surgery, you get like a big piece of paper that says like, here's what you can expect. But like when you become famous, there's
Oh
nothing like
man.
that, you know?
Yeah, there's nothing that can prepare you for it, and you definitely don't get a piece of paper with instructions and guidelines. No, that's a really interesting take. I hadn't thought about that, but you're right. I mean, in the history of contemporary, I mean, civilization, it's relatively new with mass media. But on a humanity level, how that affects psychologically and personally, and I think. Look, I mean, there's some people that speak about this, and I think it's important that more of us who have experienced any level of this do speak and say that, living is just as important as, creating and doing the job. Because how could I like create and, and do this job if I don't, where's my source? Also have to live and have some normalcy and humanity in order to be able to turn it into this art form and share it with the world.
So when it came time to make this new record, which is great, by the way, like what do you talk to me? Maybe just talk to me broadly. How am I going to approach it? How's it going to be different this time? What do I want to say?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, I wanted it to be very human, raw, honest and real. There's a certain aspect of you have to play the game or like deliver certain types of records or this, that, and the other. And, I like it's what comes with signing a major contract, you know what I mean? There's a job to do. But, deep down artistically, you want to be able to make the art that you want to make and selfishly create. And, I like conceptually, Freak Show is about like embracing your freak or your other or your flaw or your scar or your weird or your like disadvantage or your like strange or any of these things that make us all human that so many of us have, but especially in today's world where like we have to hide that or project this version of ourselves to, especially in social media, this like curated image of something that's not really human anymore. It's just like this like projected version of our life. And I wanted to like say, hey, I'm human. I bleed. I'm not super, like, and yeah, and just like share, an honest human story and and do it, kind of do it my way and hope that people would, hear and be like, damn man, like I feel that way too sometimes.
Yeah, I think it's a powerful thing to kind of peel back the curtain there. The song "Love You Forever," which is about your mom's passing, beautiful song. What do I want to ask? Tell me, I guess, how did you feel when you wrote that song? What did you want to do when you wrote that song? Did that song feel like something you had to do? Did it something that came naturally out of you?
Yeah, it definitely was something I had to do. Um, I think as a part of the grieving process, given that this is my form of self-expression, my art form, this is my medium, this is my outlet. And, you know, given that I have this outlet, given that this is, the biggest part of my life, it's important for me to use this medium as a part of my grieving process. So I did a few songs, you know, about her. I mean, it's not the first time I've, even before losing her, Dear Mama by Tupac is one of my favorite songs of all time. And, her and I would listen to it and cry. So I knew that at this stage of my life and in this album, that song, in whatever form it was going to be in, had to have a place on the track list. Um, the eureka came to me when I thought about this book she used to read me that I hadn't thought of probably in 30 years or whatever. Like it was Love You Forever, and it's just children's book, and I don't know where that book just came into my mind, my memory, my like, but somehow that like sparked, and I was like, well, what if I use that template? Every verse is like a different part of the book because the book progresses from being young to adolescence to to the grown up to losing your mom. And I tried to structure the song through those different phases, verse by verse.
That's a Canadian author, by the way. Do you know that?
Oh wow.
Robert
I
Munch.
should.
Yeah. Canadian author from here in Ontario.
It's a beautiful, beautiful book.
Well, man, I didn't know that inspired. It makes sense now, but like that's a very big book in Canada. That's like, I mean, that's in all of our classrooms growing up and
Very
stuff like
big
that
book for
too.
me and my mama.
That's a beautiful thing. What are you doing? Maybe this is a good way to close. What are you doing this time? Give me an example of something you're doing this time differently so that it feels a little bit more sustainable. This thing you're doing, this life, this career, this something that maybe you were doing before and now you're doing it differently.
All starts with the autonomy and ownership of the creative process and the big decisions. You know, of course, as a leader, if you lead democratically, you got to know when to compromise or listen to your Jedi Council, or
Yeah.
take
Yeah.
suggestions and
Yeah.
all that. But it's also very, very, very important, as a solo artist, to know how to put your foot down and to make your own decisions as well. And I think, in terms of the songwriting process, in terms of the song selection, I mean, I do 200 songs an album, and I pick 13 of them,
No way,
like,
really.
at least. But in terms of that selection of the 13, having, making sure that my heart's tied to all 13 of them, and there's not one that I feel like, that's really just not me. Like, so that, when it comes time to tour it, and I'm performing them live every single night, I'm not like phoning it in. I'm not like, this is, I'm reenacting my heart and soul, my, stories that are real to me. Um, and yeah, and just leading with truth, in my heart, and having fun, man. I mean, you gotta have fun.
So what I'm hearing there is like, maybe you don't have to get into specifics, but last time you maybe were listening to too many people, you were letting too many people get in your head, you were letting too many people sort of make decisions, you were sort of doubting yourself. And now this time around, what the change is like, I'm going to trust myself more. I'm going to make my own calls more.
Yeah, yeah. And of course, it's not like, it's never all that black and white, but it's like, eh, deep, deep, deep down, when it comes to certain decisions, you know, trusting that power, stepping into your power, taking it back, and like believing in yourself and your heart and your gut, win or lose. Because, you know what I mean? I'd rather lose doing something I really wanted to do than win doing something I didn't believe in or have my heart
I mean, let's end it there. It's a beautiful thing. Lovely to meet you, man. Thanks for your time.
in. Likewise, man. And thank you so much for the time.